change is normal. All change is just a normal part of life. It's going to happen anyway. Change happens as you move forwards. You know, if you some changes are good, some changes are not so good. But it's an inevitable part of life. How you doing? Welcome to this next video. We're going to talk today about how to quit fearing change. This is an important one for me. This is something that it took me years to realize, even after I stopped drinking alcohol, that the reason why I was procrastinating, I wasn't doing things, the reason why I wasn't changing a lot of the things was because of the fear I had of turning into somebody else, basically. Fear of the unknown is a huge one. Fear of what's going to happen, and it's that fear. I think fear of making an idiot out of yourself. Fear of there's so many different things that can come into this that can encompass this one idea or one problem. But look at it from the perspective that change is normal. All change is just a normal part of life. It's going to happen anyway. Change happens as you move forwards. You know, if you some changes are good, some changes are not so good. But it's an inevitable part of life. Nobody remains the same. I mean, they reckon after 7 years that every cell in your body is changed, is different to the person that you were. So physically, you're a different person in 7 years' time. I don't know how much truth is in that. I would imagine that after 7 years, there is some semblance of what you used to be, but you've still got the memories of who you used to be. So you're essentially the same brain or the same mind in a different physical form, right? So for me, the whole purpose of this is that you have to direct your own change. You have to take what you're doing and move yourself in the direction that you want to do, and that takes thought, it takes planning, it takes an idea of where you want to go. It takes some serious thought about the end result of this, and it also takes there's a certain aspect of this which is no matter how much you plan this, no matter how much you think you're going to turn into that person, you know, that person is not really going to come about. That the person you become is the person you're going to become, and you can only work towards. I mean, what we've got is a series of moments, what we call the now, and as you move forwards in that life and you live your life in those moments, you are gradually and slowly but surely, inexorably, I suppose, on a path which is going to take you into a certain place. Now, for me, when I was drinking alcohol, it was a degeneration of life. Wasn't evolving into anything good. You know, it was speeding up the process of change in some areas of my life, and then in other areas of my life, you know, it's so you're compacting yourself so much that you're afraid of, or at least I was afraid of doing anything, of pushing myself into any boundaries, pushing my boundaries out to any extent. Because I think that breeds fear in and of itself, if you get what I mean. You know, the actual process of linking yourself to a drug and becoming dependent on that drug. And I'm not just talking about dependency in the sense of a physical dependence. I'm talking about dependence in the sense of you cannot live your life properly without this drug. You know, you start to fear more and more and more that anything that's outside of the drug, and that was my experience anyway. And then you begin to fear the results of what you're doing. You start to see the consequences of what you're doing. You know, life is all about choices and trade-offs. So anyway, that's the way it is, I think. All right, here's the second part of this video on how to stop fearing change. I just met Esther down in Guatemala for some lunch, and she just arrived on the doorstep there, so that's cool. Anyway, self-directed behavior, that's what I was talking about before, is the type of behavior that you're you're thinking about now from the perspective of you are directing your own change. You are saying to yourself, well, this is where I want to go. And you have to understand that, first of all, is where do you want to go? Then you can understand how you're going to get there. I think that's important, you know, to understand where you're going, to have that ideal goal in your mind, and that can be 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, whatever it is. Like I said, a lot of the changes that will happen in your life, a lot of the places that you will go, it's a part of life that you're growing as you grow. So you're growing and you're moving and you're changing directions as you go, and that's part and parcel of the whole, I suppose, system of change. Once you have that ultimate direction of, you know, this is where I want to be in let's say that you're taking 5 years time, and that's your goal that you're going to do it in. Once you have that as your goal, then start to break things down into the smallest available chunks. So you break it down into maybe months. This is what I want to do this month. This is what I want to do, or this is where I want to be. This is how I would do it. I would say to myself, look, the ultimate goal is to be somewhere in 5 years time. So to have this far out distant goal, and it will be a general goal for me. It won't be very specific unless there's something specific that I want to achieve. Let's say run a marathon by a certain date. Right, that's probably as good an example as anything else. But what you want to do is, for me, I will take that goal and then I'll try and get specific only for a year. So in a year's time, this is where I want to be specifically, and then I'll break that down into months and say I want to be here and here and here by this month. In order to get to that, I've got to hit these targets every month. Some things you're going to be able to do that, and some things you're not going to be able to do that. But the reason I'm saying to you, break it down into smaller chunks, is the smaller the chunk that you can do, the smaller the chunk that you can get your mind to see, physically see. You know, you can actually physically see yourself in that position in a very short space of time. The smaller that chunk can be, the easier it is for you to understand that you can do it. So to get to anywhere in 5 years time, it has to be taken moment by moment by moment, step by step by step. You have to take these steps forwards, one after another. So please understand it from that perspective, that the less you are the one that's causing the fear to yourself, and you're the one by saying to yourself, by setting yourself maybe too big targets, or by saying to yourself, well, I can't get to those targets, or by saying to yourself, well, I don't have the skills to get there, or I don't have the mental ability to get there. Whatever it is, you're setting the criteria for your own failure. You're setting the criteria for your own fear, and the only way to move forwards with this is to reduce it. You're focusing where you're going, you're picking a target out, you're moving towards that target, and you're breaking it down. You're moving towards it by breaking it down to the smallest steps possible. And that's, I think, it's the best and easiest recipe for trying to overcome the fear, because nobody's going to fear those small steps, right? Nobody's going to fear those small steps. So if you want help to stop drinking alcohol, we've got a course over on, we've got a program, a platform, which is www.habitsv2.com, www.habitsv2.com. Over there, there's so much stuff. You have to see where I am. I've got to show you this. I'm in a busy street here in Elche. I don't know if you can see around me there. It's absolutely lovely day. It's probably about 15 degrees, but there's people everywhere. And that, sat in front of bins here. I'm going to go for a walk here as well. It's a nice part of the town to do it. Anyway, what we've got over on the platform is basically the first month we spend trying to help people to stop drinking. Then we move on to gradually and slowly moving you away from alcohol, moving you away from the alcohol thinking, breaking down the habits, building new habits. And in the second half, so the second 6 months, it's all about trying to build that best possible version of yourself. If you want something for free, we've got the quick start preparation guide, and that's really a short course less than an hour, and it's designed to give you the best possible start that I can give you, to give you clarity about where you're going, how you're going to get there, to give you confidence that you can do this, and the courage to step across that line. I think that's important, having that courage. And again, it's the same thing with courage. I've said this before. Break down your courage is not this huge thing that you should have this courage in any situation. It's saying to yourself, well, I fear this. I fear what's happening to me. I fear the fact that this is going to change me into somebody that I don't know. It's going to put me into a life that I don't know. It's going to put me into situations that I don't know. It's going to put me into mental situations that I don't know and I don't know how to handle. And accept that. That's fair enough. We all do. I mean, even now, not talking about the alcohol, I'm thinking about things that we're going to do. And sometimes if I allow myself to go in a certain position, a certain way of thinking about this, I can get overwhelmed with the fear about, oh my God, like, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? And that's all. It's mental stories that I'm telling myself. And the less I can do that, the more positivity I can do that, the more I can break it down. And it's the same thing with the courage. If you break your plans down and break what you're trying to do into smaller and smaller chunks, then there's a bigger likelihood that you're going to succeed. There's a bigger likelihood that you'll have that courage to step across the line, because all you have to do is, stopping drinking alcohol is one drink at a time. It's one day at a time. That's all you have to take this at. Within Habits V2, all we talk about is get to that first 30 days. That's all we're trying to do. We're not talking about quitting drinking alcohol forever. We're not talking about any of that. I mean, I think that's a mind screw, a mind fuck that you do to yourself, and there's no need for it. There's just no need to be putting that type of pressure on yourself in the beginning. Absolutely none. So, you're not going to live forever. You're not going to have to stop alcohol forever, and you will get to a stage where, and usually around the 6-month mark, that's what we're trying to get for, to move for, is in that first 6 months, to get you to a place where you are literally thinking to yourself, I'm at 6 months now, and this is definitely something that I can do. I can definitely say to myself now, I am never going to drink again. That's what we're trying to do. That's the whole point of it. So you don't have to do it for 30. You don't have to think more than 30 days in advance. And that time extends. So at the beginning we only think 2 or 3 days, and then we think, as I say, 1 day is the first target. Get to 1 day, then get to 3 days, then get to 7 days, then get to 2 weeks, and so on and so forth. And you're building up the time all the time. You're building up your experience. You're building up your expectations of yourself. You're building up your habit of not drinking, and that's important. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Take good care of yourself. I know this has probably been a long one. I don't know how long this has gone for now, but yeah, I will speak to you again very soon. Onwards and upwards. Take care of yourself. Bye bye.